Okay, so this is the third episode of the gaming PC at all price points. This is the price point of $400. Now, I'm going to change the format of this yet again. The first one was very structured, it was scripted, but also it was quite boring. Second one was kind of all over the place. I was talking so much about parts that I wouldn't even end up choosing in the end, but I thought it was still kind of interesting. I'm going to try and get the best of both worlds and get somewhat of a structured video that is still interesting. So what I've done is I've set out a budget for all of my components and estimated what I'm going to spend for all of these components. You can see what I've estimated right here. I'm not going to go into detail, and I'm just going to start with the system. Let's start by picking our CPU, and I've allocated around $70 towards this component. So right away I'm going to set our budget to a little bit above what I allocated actually, because I just want to see if we can find any good deals on a CPU. Then we'll pick that up. So yeah, let's just sort by highest to lowest actually for once, because I want to see the best of what this price point has to offer. Right away I'm seeing a lot of Intel chips, some Core 2 Duos, even some Xeons. I'm just looking for any newer processor we might have, because for gaming, core count does not matter as much as clock speed. So right away I see the Athlon 3000G as well as the Core i3 9100F. Now the Athlon is only a dual core processor, and a lot of its price is going towards a GPU, and we're actually going to have a discrete GPU in this system. So yeah, at this price point I think the processor that makes the most sense is the Core i3 9100F. I think it's the most value for a gaming CPU at this price point. So it's a quad-core, quad-thread processor, and it has a base clock of 3.6 gigahertz and can boost up to 4.2 gigahertz, making it great for gaming, as well as of course Intel's great single-core performance in comparison to AMD. It also does not have integrated graphics, signified by the F in its name, which is no problem since we have a dedicated GPU. And it does come with a stock fan, so that's another component we won't have to spend our very limited budget on. As you can see by the reviews, it's got great ones. I mean, this guy says great budget CPU that runs at 4 gigahertz at all times, runs game flawlessly, and it never goes above 65 watts with the stock cooler. So yeah, I think this is a great choice for our budget, and we'll pick the Core i3 9100F. I know a lot of you will probably be happy that I'm choosing Intel for this, as I found out in the comments of my last video. But yeah, let's pick our next component now, and that's the motherboard. Now we have to look for a few things. First of all, our CPU does not support overclocking since it's not a K model. So for that reason, we don't need to look for a chipset that supports overclocking, as it's not going to add any value to our CPU. So yeah, with that being said, I think I'm just going to pick the cheapest one I can find. Let's see what we have. We have the MSI H310 and Pro VDH Plus. Okay, let's see what other options we have. We also have one from ASRock. And my only requirement is that it support our CPU with the socket LGA 1151, and also it'd be reasonably close to my allocated price for this, which is around $60. So the cheapest ones we see are around $60. But I see one with 4 memory slots that is from MSI, and it's $70. Now I'm tempted to pick this, but it is a little bit over our budget. Okay, you know what, I'm not gonna pick that, but if you do have extra $10 to spend, I would definitely make that one of our highest priorities in our upgrade list. But what I am gonna pick is the MSI H320 and Pro VDH Plus, simply because it's the cheapest one I see. Let's take a look at the specs and features of this actually. It has the LGA 1151 socket. The most important spec on this sheet. It's micro ATX. Of course, at this price point, getting ATX is quite difficult, and some of the drawbacks with micro ATX are that you have less expansion slots, less DIMM slots, and of course, you might have to buy a new case with a motherboard upgrade. It sports up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, and it only has 2 memory slots, which is a shame because at this price point, I would have liked to have at least 4 slots, but hey, if the $10 is something you are willing to cash out, I would definitely go for the option I mentioned earlier that had 4 slots. Of course, it has a PCIe X16 slot that we will actually be using this time for our graphics card. Other than that, also 2 X1 slots, and the rear I/O is also looking pretty good. It has 2 USB 3.1 ports, 4 USB 2 ports, 3 audio ports, as well as DVI, VGA, and HDMI. Of course, we won't be using those outputs since we are getting a dedicated GPU. Our video outputs will come from there instead. So yeah, for our motherboard, I've gone with the MSI H310M Pro VDH Plus. Next, let's pick some memory, and this is something we can actually spend a little less on, because since Intel does not benefit as much as Ryzen does from higher clocked RAM, we can skimp on it a little bit. I'm still gonna go with dual channel and 2 4GB sticks, but I'm just gonna see the cheapest one we have. We see G.Skill right here. It's 2400 speed. Doesn't matter because it's Intel, and it's only $31, right on what I allocated for this component. Let's add that. Of course, 16 gigabytes would be nice, but since we have a dedicated GPU, our CPU and GPU don't need to share the same RAM. Our GPU has its own VRAM. So far we're at $160, about halfway to finishing our budget, and I'm confident that we can get a pretty good system for around $400. Next, we have to pick our storage. I've allocated around $30 for this. So yeah, I do want an SSD in this system, and I want it to be at least 300 gigabytes. Let's see what we can get. I'm gonna sort by lowest to highest. Okay, the cheapest one is quite over our budget at $44. Let's see, I did get a good 256 gigabyte one for our $300 gaming PC, but I would like something a bit higher than that. Let's look. What is the highest capacity we have under $300? It seems to be just 256. That's unfortunate because 256 gigabytes will disappear quite quickly. So another one of the highest upgrade priorities would be the storage. I am going to pick the Silicon Power Ace A55 SSD. It's 256 gigabytes. And only $27.50. Of course, this is an NVMe SSD, but we do not need that at this price point, and we certainly can't afford it. Next component we're going to pick is our video card. And I'm actually quite excited for this. I've allocated $140 for this component, the most expensive part in the system, and I'm quite excited to see what we can get. I'm thinking of like a 1050 Ti or an RX 570 possibly. I'm going to set the budget to around $150. I set it a bit higher for the same reason I set the CPU one a bit higher. If I can get a good deal, I'll take it. Let's see. Okay, we have an RX 570 for $150 as well as a 1650. Let's see, we have a bit lower down the price point. Right here we have an MSI GTX 1050 Ti overclocked. This could definitely be a great option. We also have RX 570 here again. I'm actually going to take a little look and see what is actually better, the RX 570 or the 1050 Ti. So I just checked, and the RX 570 is quite a bit better than the 1050 Ti, and for around the same price. So we're getting an 8GB overclocked RX 570 for $145. I mean, that's kind of hard to beat. So I'm going to add that to our list, and let's see what we're on. $332. We have $70 left for a case and power supply. As for the case, I'm looking at pretty much the lowest we have. I was actually pretty impressed by the CiT F3 that I used in my $300 gaming PC video, so I'm going to pick that again. An overview of the features. You see it has some mesh at the front, an included fan, as well as a acrylic side panel. You can see it also has gaps behind the motherboard tray for cable management. No power supply shroud, of course, but at this price point, that's hard to get anyways. The front I/O is also pretty great. We have 2 USB 2 ports, some audio jacks, USB 3, as well as a micro SD card reader, as well as a full-size SD card reader. And we also have ventilation at the back. I mean, for $33, it's great, and I even love the aesthetic of this thing. Call me weird, but I'm vibing with this black and blue theme they have going on here. $33, let's add that. For a power supply, I'm gonna try and get something a bit better than what I've used in my last 2 episodes. I used the EVGA 400 watt ATX one in those, but I'm trying to get something a bit better. So let's see. The Thermaltake Smart Series is definitely an option. It's 80 plus rated. I'm looking for at least 80 plus in in the system. So we have an EVGA BR as well. It's actually 80 plus bronze, $50. That would be quite a bit over though. $15 over our budget. I'm liking this Thermaltake Smart Series. From the looks, it does not have all black cables, but at least they're covered in some sort of black coating. It's 430 watts, more than enough to power our system and also give us headroom for future upgrades. And it's got an 80 plus rating. Not modular, of course, but let's add that. And how much does our total system cost? $408. I think that's right on budget. And yeah, that was it. So yeah, let's talk about some future upgrades. Of course, I mentioned the motherboard as well as the storage. I think the first priority still should be the storage. You definitely want to add a 500 gigabyte or a 1 terabyte hard drive to the system if you have the extra $30 to do so. If you have another $20, I would definitely get the motherboard upgrade. Get the MSI motherboard I was talking about earlier. It has 4 RAM slots and will definitely save you some money in the future, so you don't have to buy a whole new RAM kit, or even worse, a whole new motherboard. So yeah, if you have any more money than that, wait for my $500 gaming PC video, which is gonna come out sometime. Anyway, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it. Please just do that. It costs you a second and makes me really happy. Follow me on Twitter or join my subreddit if you want to join the conversation. And yeah, see you in the next video.